This is a production of WGBH2 Boston.
Tonight on Greater Boston, debating the Iran nuclear deal, the good, the bad, and whether this really is the best way to go, with two top experts. Plus, Scott Walker was welcomed by huge crowds in New Hampshire on his first trip to the state since he officially declared as a presidential candidate. And we have what we're calling a Wildcard Caucus to take on happy hour, a sales tax holiday on meals, and how timers and buzzers may be able to help a whole lot more than just a home run derby. All that, and who are the real losers in our state's lottery? The moment the Iran nuclear deal was announced in the pre-dawn hours of Tuesday, the debate began. Israel's prime minister called it an historic mistake. Lawmakers around the U.S. declared their support or opposition before having read a word. But President Obama has insisted that it's the best deal possible to keep Iran from getting nuclear weapons. And to those who argue Iran will break the agreement and do it at once anyway, he had this to say yesterday.
And if that's your view, then we go back to the choice that you have to make earlier. That means, presumably, that you can't negotiate.
So will this make us and the world safer or not? Joining me now to hash it all out are Jeff Robbins. He's a former delegate to the United Nations Human Rights Commission under President Clinton. Stephen Walt is a professor at the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, contributor to Foreign Policy magazine, and co-author of the book, The Israel Lobby and U.S. Foreign Policy. Stephen, Jeff, thanks so much for being here. I think we're 2 days in, 58 days till Congress has to do their part of this thing. Give me the short version, starting with you, Steve, on where you are today on this deal.
Well, I think this was a good deal, right? It cuts Iran's enrichment capability by about 2/3, from 19,000 centrifuges to roughly 6,000, gets rid of almost all of their stockpile of low-enriched uranium, puts in place more stricter inspections than any country has ever been under, and has a very clever arrangement for putting sanctions back on if at any point we think they're cheating on the agreement. So given that the purpose of the negotiation was to bar Iran any clear path to a nuclear weapon and make it very difficult for Iran to acquire one secretly without us finding out about it, creating a long breakout time of roughly a year, I think this was a successful negotiation.
You don't.
Well, what I want is to have the facts actually placed before Congress, because there's been a yawning gap between the way the deal is portrayed and the reality. And all anybody can ask for is that the tap dancing that has gone on and that the facts be placed before Congress.
Who's doing the dancing?
Well, frankly, the administration. It's the administration, and I'm a Democrat. I voted for President Obama twice. I was a Clinton appointee, as you pointed out. But the administration fought as hard as it possibly could, as you know, to prevent any review of the deal at all. So here's what...
Pre-announcement 2 days ago, or even subsequent to that 2 days ago?
Oh, no, pre. You remember that he threatened to veto, repeatedly threatened to veto legislation, which would simply give Congress the right to review. So while it was amusing to see him at the press conference on Tuesday say that he welcomed robust debate, it's exactly that robust debate that he tried to prevent. So here are the issues. Here's what people need to understand, yay or nay, that within about 10 or 15 years, Iran will have nuclear weapons. And the reason we know they'll have nuclear weapons is because any leverage that exists now is gone. The sanctions evaporate. The $150 billion is turned over to this terrorist regime.
And we won't continue to talk to him during those 15 years.
You may talk. There may be talk, but there's no leverage. So that leaves us with exactly one option, an option which we've already said is not
military
on the table,
intervention.
Which is military. So it can't happen. In fact, it's even less likely to happen in 10 years. Why? Because with $150 billion that's being handed over to this regime, what is it they're going to do? They get to buy ballistic missiles. They get to buy conventional weapons. Now, that may be fine.
And support, you think, terrorist regimes with some of that money, too.
Well, I don't think about it. It's the president's own national director of intelligence who
hold
says
it there? Where's he wrong, Steve?
Oh, he's wrong on a number of things. First of all, how anyone can be certain what Iran will do over the next 10 or 15 years, I think, is impossible to know. The whole purpose of this deal is to prevent them from getting nuclear weapons for 10 to 15 years. And what Iran chooses to do in that period will depend a lot on our overall relationship with them. It's worth noting that Iran has never made a sprint for a nuclear weapon now. The CIA believes they don't have a nuclear weapons program underway now. So if they
program or a nuclear weapon?
They don't have a nuclear weapons program today, and that's been the CIA's view since 2007. So the idea that we know with certainty Iran will have nuclear weapons, I think is just a fantasy at this point.
Can we talk about this, the years of the agreement rather than the future post? I mean, if you stop the average American, if they have any idea what's going on, they'd say, I'm concerned about inspections. How can we ensure they won't cheat? That came up yesterday. President Obama at length spoke about inspection standards, pointing out, he says, 24/7 for known nuclear facilities. He also said if Iran does try to hide something we want to inspect, U.S. can automatically put sanctions in place, and it's for the 24-day process to get access to a disputed site. Here's what he said.
The nature of nuclear programs and facilities is such, this is not something you hide in a closet. This is not something you put on a dolly and kind of wheel off somewhere. And by the way, if we identify an undeclared site that we're suspicious about, we're going to be keeping eyes on it.
Doesn't he have a point there, Jeff? You're laughing.
I don't mean to laugh, but we're going to be keeping eyes on it. What does that amount to? It amounts to basically this sort of Monty Python-like inspection regime where you get to petition and ask and see if they'll permit you to inspect, and then if they don't, you consult, you then mediate, you arbitrate, you do everything but levitate, and months go by and nothing occurs. So that's not really a serious inspection.
Is it really a serious inspection?
I think to call it a Monty Python arrangement is insulting to the IAEA, insulting to the American intelligence community that's going to be using all of our national technical means and other intelligence capacity to make sure they don't cheat. But the other thing to remember here is the purpose here is to make sure that Iran doesn't have an incentive to acquire nuclear weapons. Iran has many reasons actually not to want to cross the nuclear threshold. For one thing, if they cross the nuclear threshold and were to test a nuclear weapon, they would immediately encourage some of the countries in their immediate neighborhood to follow suit, and Iran doesn't want that to happen.
I want to bring up one other thing that was brought up, I thought, offensively by CBS reporter Major Garrett yesterday. But let's hear Garrett and the president, and then I want to broaden the topic that Garrett attempted to raise. Here it is.
Can you tell the country, sir, why you are content with all the fanfare around this deal to leave the conscience of this nation and the strength of this nation unaccounted for in relation to these 4 Americans?
I got to give you credit, Major, for how you craft those questions. For the notion that I'm content as I celebrate, that's nonsense. And you should know better.
I thought he was going to say far worse. But the issue that Garrett brought up and related issues, why weren't the captives part of the discussions? Why wasn't the funding of terrorist regimes part of the discussion? A whole variety of things. The president had an answer. Why weren't they, though?
Because this was a negotiation designed to stop one thing, designed to stop Iran from ever getting a nuclear weapon. There are other aspects of Iran's behavior we don't like. There are aspects of our behavior that Iran doesn't like either, and they didn't insist.
But if jump-starting their economy is so important to them, which it appears to be, why not negotiate harder? Why not put more things on the table?
Because in any negotiation, you don't get everything you want. And Americans have this belief that we can simply issue a set of demands, ramp up pressure, and eventually we get unconditional surrender. And if that's your objective, that's precisely the approach that the United States took from 2000 on. And that was the period in which Iran went from 0 centrifuges to having 19,000. If you wanted to get a deal, you were going to have some things off the table, focus on the nuclear program, and get a deal that does, in fact, prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons.
Jeff, we only have a minute left. You were talking about the lack of transparency on the administration's part. I'd say the part that troubled me was the fact that the vast majority of members of Congress who spoke had a position a nanosecond after the deal was struck without having read a word. There's also criticism, you're amongst the critics, who suggest Bibi Netanyahu has far more influence, I'm putting words in your mouth, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, over what our Congress does than their constituents may. Where might he or those critics be wrong?
No, I think that's nonsense. I think to blame it on Israel is what the offensive thing is. Look, I'm not surprised that Steve and I have a different view, essentially, of what planet Earth looks like, because Steve and some others, not many, argued for a very long time, up until 2013, that we shouldn't place sanctions on Iran, that if we place sanctions on Iran, that would make them less likely to negotiate. And that, of course, proved out to be totally 100% incorrect. So I'm not surprised that Steve, having opposed the imposition of sanctions, isn't particularly troubled about the removal of them.
But where's he wrong about we only have 30 seconds left. Where's he wrong about the influence of Netanyahu going before Congress immediately before his election at the invitation of not the president but the Republican speaker? His power is immense. Is it not?
No, of course not. I mean, it's Americans who are concerned about Americans, and they should be. They should be, because what occurs is that it's Americans, our kids, your kids, my grandkids, from here on in, who year 10, year 12, whichever it is, are going to face a state sponsor of terror which absolutely has nuclear weapons.
Gotta hold you there. You have the last 15 seconds.
Okay, good. First of all, I never opposed sanctions on Iran. I opposed military threats against Iran, because if you want Iran to get nuclear weapons, keep threatening with military force.
How about Israel?
Second, the Israeli government opposes this deal. I think that's a mistaken judgment on their part. I actually believe Congress will ultimately approve it, and the United States, Israel, other countries in the region will be better off as a result.
We will continue in days ahead, Steve.
Okay.
Jeff, thank you so much for your
Thank you,
time.
Jim.
I appreciate it. Later, our Wildcard Caucus takes on the big topics: happy hours, sales tax on meals, and how a buzzer could improve a lot more things than just baseball. Plus, the real truth behind America's most heavily played lottery, that would be ours. But first, it's presidential prospect palooza again in New Hampshire. 5 candidates, the Donald, Chris Christie, Lindsey Graham, Scott Walker, and Hillary Clinton, are in the Granite State today. Trump and Christie and Clinton all have events going on right about now. But Clinton also held a town hall earlier, where she expanded on the proposal she unveiled Monday to give tax credits to any company which shares profits with its employees.
This increases productivity, it increases loyalty of employees. It gives you a bond with your employees. They will work harder, they will look for more things to do to improve what's going on in the stores. That's just common sense. You treat somebody like they have a stake in your business, they're going to stand up a little straighter, they're going to work a little harder, they're going to make a difference.
Today was also the first visit to New Hampshire for Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker since he officially declared as a presidential candidate. And as WGBH's Adam Riley shows us, his supporters came out in full force.
Scott Walker has taken some heat lately for not spending enough time in New Hampshire, but the massive crowd that turned out to see him in Amherst didn't seem to mind.
I like what he's done in Wisconsin. I like how he stood up to a lot of opposition. He seems to have a good backbone.
When Walker arrived at Joey's Diner a little before noon, he hopped on the bed of a pickup truck to address the people who couldn't get in.
Next weekend, I'm going to be back on a Harley next Saturday.
Inside the restaurant, the folksiness continued, with Walker playing up his humble origins.
My first job as a kid was washing dishes at the Countryside Restaurant. Washing dishes. Then I moved up to the big time in high school. I started flipping hamburgers at McDonald's.
The governor is best known for his battles with and victories over organized labor in Wisconsin. And today, they topped his list of achievements.
We took on the big government union bosses, and we won.
But Walker also cast himself as a conservative optimist, a happy Republican warrior in the mold of, you guessed it, Ronald Reagan.
And without apologies, he stood for American values. That led to one of the most peaceful times in modern American history.
Walker didn't take questions from the public, but he did meet the press afterward. Asked if Donald Trump might be damaging the Republican brand, he took a pass.
Well, Donald Trump can speak for himself, and I'm not going to put words in the mouth of any candidate, him or anybody else out there.
But he did offer a preview of the attack he hopes to use on Hillary Clinton next year.
I'm a new, fresh face. She's a candidate of the past. I'm about as anti-Washington as you can get. She embodies everything that's wrong with Washington.
Soon after, Walker exited, but he promised he'd get back to New Hampshire frequently in the coming months and deep into 2016. Adam Riley, WGBH News.
Next week, yet another Republican will be officially entering the race. He's Ohio Governor John Kasich. He announces Tuesday, and yes, he'll be in New Hampshire later that night. Now to the group we've decided to dub our Wildcard Caucus, because everything's on the table with this trio tonight. We have Sue O'Connell, she's co-publisher of Bay Windows and the South End News, and an opinion maven extraordinaire. Comedian and Cambridge native Jimmy Tingle, and yes, that is his real name. It is, yes?
Yes, sir.
I just want to be sure. And someone else with an opinion on virtually everything, Dave Andelman, Phantom Gourmet, Mendon Drive-In fame, and also the founder of the Restaurant and Business Alliance, and obviously a nutritionist on the side. That's really very nice.
I think that's illegal in this building, actually.
They wouldn't give me a GBH mug, so I brought my own beverage.
That was on my direction. Yeah. In any case, in case any of you didn't see this, I want to show you all a little bit of this year's Home Run Derby. Here it is. Okay, so here's the deal. For those of you who know, there's a timer. First time ever in the Home Run Derby is the timer. Yes. Here's how we're going to do this tonight. First, I'm going to ask you what else in life should be timed. I'm going to give you a certain amount of time, and when you violate that, exactly. So starting with you, Sue O'Connell, what else besides home run derbies would you time in life?
Anytime a conservative speaks.
Okay.
I just like to hit the button.
Thank you, David. That takes care of you. How about you, Jimmy Tingle?
I would say a timer on commentary for people who have not read the Iran deal but oppose it. Lindsey Graham recently said, the other day, he said, this is a death sentence for Israel. Have you read it, Mr. Graham? No, I haven't.
Exactly.
Simple
I like
as
that.
that.
And how about you, David Andelman?
I think all meetings should
sorry,
be...
time is up. Thank you. No, my apologies. Go ahead. What would you put a time limit on?
I think all meetings should be limited to 10 minutes. That's my attention span. I don't hear anything after that. And coffee in the morning, 3 minutes or less, or I am out the door.
I am so with you on that. It's unbelievable. Can we take a move? Stay in sports. The biggest topic in this area, at least in my estimation, United States Olympic Committee is in town today. They're meeting with Boston 2024. The poll numbers are not so great. Where are you on the Olympics coming here? What is it, 9 years hence? You have 15 seconds.
I want it. I want the Olympics
You do?
here. I think it would be great for the state. I think it would be great for the people of Boston. We just have to get a good plan on the table, and it's going to take taxpayer money, but the taxpayers are ultimately going to benefit for it. And if they don't benefit for it, we can have the javelin throw from Government Center aimed at Beacon Hill.
Thank you. I like that idea. So you're really for this thing. I'm actually surprised.
I think it's a good idea. They just got to get the right plan. You can't have the...
Thank you very much. Now, I would guess, knowing you as I do, fiscal conservative, yes?
I am.
You're probably at least wary of this proposition, yes?
Well, I'm a Boston homeowner, and I think the state is running the MBTA and the casinos and the pot stores so swimmingly well. I totally trust them to write a $5 billion business plan 15 years from now. How could anything go wrong? And by the way, I'm sure if it falls short, David Ortiz and Michelle Kwan will make up the difference.
How about, before we get to Sue, isn't there legitimacy there? We don't have a great history of dealing with big projects in a wonderfully fiscally responsible way, Jimmy Tingle.
Listen, we have the best colleges in the world
We
here.
do.
We have the best sports teams in
We
the
do.
country here. I think we can, I think we can pull it together for 3 weeks. We just have to have good planning. And like I said, the planning in the beginning was terrible. Having what they said, beach volleyball on the public gardens. Where they're going to tell the people, okay, when the Swan boat goes under the bridge, serve.
Yes, but also it's much better now, even though we have no aquatic center, no velodrome, no media center, no developer, no insurance. Okay, that's perfect. Now, how about you, Sue O'Connell? You want to break this tie?
Well, no, I'm actually agree with both of them. I would love to have the Olympics here. I love the Olympics. I watch it all the time. At the same time, I'm very concerned of our ability to pull it off effectively. The planning of this has been awful, and it's if we can shed that, start fresh, and worry about displaced people, worry about the overruns. I mean, I like the Olympics.
But you Gateway News, South End News co-publisher, I forgot, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
We were talking on the radio on Boston Public Radio the other day. There was a huge meeting set up in the South End. We keep hearing from Boston 2024, I want to go out to the community, talk to real people, no ads, this sort of thing. How'd that meeting go?
Guess what? The meeting didn't happen, but they have reached out to me.
What?
The Olympic Committee has reached out to me
After
as
the meeting
publisher
didn't happen.
after the meeting hasn't
Why
happened.
didn't the meeting happen?
They couldn't nail them down. They couldn't get them to show
They couldn't
up.
get one person.
And the South End News, of course, the South End rather, is adjacent to all the things that are happening in the city and every single part of the plan.
You're Mr. Community kind of guy. They don't even show up at community meetings. That doesn't bother you?
It's not my community, Jim. What do you want from me?
That's actually a very... Okay, we're going to go to a couple topics that you're obsessed with because I felt it was sort of nice that you showed up here. Excuse me. Now, number one, last night I railed against the sales tax holiday. And my theory behind this is it doesn't really generate new revenues. It's going to happen in August. What it does is it gets people to shift buying patterns. If you're going to buy your air conditioner now and you hear there's a sales tax holiday, you just wait till late August. You have a different approach. You, as a restaurant guy, Phantom Gourmet kind of guy, want to expand it, not contract it. What would you do?
Well, I don't have a problem with the sales tax holiday. Families can spend some money. You are right. People just do their 2 to 4 weeks worth of shopping. Well, they just do their 2 to 4 weeks worth of shopping in one weekend. That's a fact.
Exactly.
Talk to any merchant.
Which doesn't generate any new money.
Talk to any merchant, that's what happens. As a matter of fact, sometimes they just hold the credit card and ring it up on that weekend. Here's something people don't understand. Restaurant sales go down anywhere from 10 to 50% because people shop and they don't dine, and the restaurants never get that money back. And 300,000 hospitality industry workers that rely on wages and gratuities take a major hit. So if we're going to do it, either restaurants should be included, or we should have a meals tax holiday to help them make up for it another week.
Okay, so obviously he has an interest because he's in the industry. Where are you in this, Jimmy Tingle?
I think we should just have a regular holiday.
What does that mean?
like a Friday, the Friday before Labor Day, have that day off, right? Unpaid state holiday, right? Don't pay the state workers.
Yeah.
You would get money. You would save money. The state would save money, okay?
Yeah.
And people would be out shopping or spending time with their family or vacation, so they'd be spending extra money because they're not working, and it's a 4-day holiday.
Can I say one thing
about
that, if I may?
That would help the restaurant business and would help my people in the South End.
Fine. I have no idea what he's talking about. Where are you? I mean, you're dependent on the business community too, ads, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
So where are you on that?
Without gimmicks, people don't do things, and that's the hard truth about it. We used to have one rate at the South End News for advertising, and people thought they were getting ripped off because we didn't have like a discount system. So you have to build a discount system so people think they're getting something. I totally, unfortunately, agree with him.
With David, yes.
This is the second time.
I don't know what it is.
It also allows businesses to move their money inventory and have cash on hand. But they may not shop. They may shop all at once, but they may not have bought those things until September. August is a terrible cash flow month for businesses. So I think it's great.
But in August, they're buying what they would have bought in July otherwise. I'm not quarreling with the meals tax thing. I agree. If
but
you
in
do
July,
it, do it.
they're traveling for the 4th of July. It's a big vacation week. They're spending money in the economy. August is awful for that. So it's moving money from September to August.
Now, final topic here, which also is another one of yours, just coincidental and unfortunate, I should say. And here, there's going to be a 20-second time limit on each issue with this thing here. 1984, Michael Caucus was governor then. He did away with happy hour in the state because his view is drunk driving, accidents, so he had some personal experience with it, all that sort of thing. You want to bring it back?
No, the law that we have right now is actually extremely dangerous. You can run a drink special. You could do $1 tequila shots if you run it for 7 straight days, which is asinine. What I would support would be something along the lines of weekday beer and wine specials, so you could do $3 beer, $5 wine during the weekdays when staff really are having trouble making a living.
But why doesn't it have the same dangers? I mean, the reality is, I only speak for myself.
I just told you the law. Listen,
if something is cheap, we're going to buy. You're not going to buy extra if it's cheap.
Jim, I just told you right now it is totally legal to do $1 tequila shots 7 days a week. It is not legal to do $3 beer or $5 wine during the weekdays. How could one possibly be more dangerous than the other? Restaurants do 2/3 of their business on the weekends. So what I'm suggesting is a formula that will allow some flexibility. It's just as safe and get people in during the week.
Thank you. What do you think about that, Jimmy Tingle?
I don't know what he's talking about.
No, I don't either, actually. No, I sort of do. I forget what he said. How about the whole notion of reintroducing happy hour?
It doesn't matter. I haven't drank in 25 years.
No, actually, you haven't.
Less.
I know.
How about
but for your friends in your community, what do you think of that?
I don't care. I don't. You know what I think?
That's why you're here. He doesn't care about the topic.
I don't really
fine.
care. But maybe I think the alcohol industry, though, in general, should be putting more money into rehabs and treatment centers and substance abuse, because alcohol is the gateway drug to all the other drugs.
Well, they're going to be at the casinos, so they can do both at the same time. Exactly.
Now,
what about you? What's your thing?
It's another example of how awful Americans are with adult issues, right?
What are you talking about?
Sex and alcohol. Like, all around the world, you can drink anytime you want. You can drink at discounts, and amazingly, because they probably don't have access to as many guns as we do.
So where's this going to lead you? I don't get it.
We should have happy hour. It's crazy. It hurts the businesses. He's right that if you do some ridiculous special for 5 years, you can keep doing it. I just don't understand why we can't have comprehensive alcohol education for teenagers and offer a happy hour so the businesses can do it.
Last word, Jimmy Tingle.
Wet T-shirt contest.
Exactly.
I think we should bring that back.
That's good. On that note,
actually, I did
thank you very much.
Sue
O'Connell, it's a pleasure. Jimmy Tingle, that is your real name. I've been told that. And David Andelman, that is your real name too, is it not? Thank you, all three of you. Time for tomorrow's Globe tonight. Your first look at Friday morning's Boston Globe with city editor Stephen Smith. And as always, we're taping this at 5:30. Welcome back, Steve. We missed you. What's on page 1?
It is one of the most enduring and durable marriages on Beacon Hill, labor unions and Democrats. But the relationship is on the rocks. Things have gotten so bad that top union officials are calling for a picket line outside a fundraiser later this month being presided over by Speaker Robert DeLeo. So you might ask, what's causing this friction between these long-standing allies. It turns out it has to do with the effort to overhaul the T, and specifically a provision that it would allow greater privatizations. The unions regard that as a real betrayal.
Boy, that's pretty incredible, I should say. And the picketing their Democratic leaders is pretty intense strategy. What else is on page one, Steve?
So they're called public records, but in Massachusetts, they often seem anything but public. Now a legislative committee is trying to put some teeth into the state's flaccid public records law. It would, for example, cap fees on certain records, and if a court rules that someone has wrongfully been denied records, then the governmental agency that did the denying it would have to cover lawyers' fees. As you know, this state's public records laws are among the weakest. Good government groups hailed this action, although it's not quite final yet. The Mass Municipal Association says it's going to raise costs for cities and towns.
But very quickly, Steve Smith, the legislature is allegedly, according to the good government groups, going to do the right thing. You just said, are they going to allow public records requests to be directed at them?
Oh, come on, Jim. Why would we want the records of the legislature to be public?
On that note,
what planet are you from?
Obviously not this one. Pluto, I guess. Steve Smith, it's great to see you. Welcome back. Now, here's a quiz. What am I holding in my hand? You see this here? A, one $30 scratch ticket. B, a $30 contribution to local services. Or C, the end of Western civilization as we know it. And the answer is D, all of the above. It is the most expensive scratch ticket in Massachusetts. I won nothing. So my $30 does go to local aid, and it is the end of Western civilization. $30 on one lottery ticket. And we learned just 2 days ago that we in the state bought $5 billion of those tickets, producing nearly $1 billion in profit for cities and towns. But to get $1 billion, someone has to lose $1 billion. And guess who it is? Mostly people who can't afford it. Get this info from the research as someone who's looked deeply into this issue for years. That would be me. In a Globe magazine piece I wrote about a year ago on who plays and loses and who does not, in Chelsea, where per capita income is just under $15,000 a year, the average person gambled, the average amount gambled by every man, woman, and child was $1,100. Now contrast that with Weston, where the per capita income is more than $250,000. Every resident gambles $44. So those in Chelsea with almost 20 times less income are spending 25 times more on the lottery. Where's Robin Hood when we need him? So after 40-some years, I know the most profitable lottery in the country, which pleases tax-phobic legislators to no end, is going nowhere. But next time you celebrate record lottery sales and record payouts to your community, just remember who's helping to set those records. What do you think? Email us, tweet us, find us online, share your thoughts. That's it for me this week. Please come back tomorrow for Beat the Press. Emily, Rooney, and others will take a closer look at that tense exchange between Major Garrett and the president, and whether the media is giving too much legitimacy to the conspiracy theories surrounding those Jade Helm military exercises in Texas. That's tomorrow at 7. I'll be back on Monday along with Congressman Stephen Lynch. That and much more, again, Monday at 7 right here in Greater Boston. And now, here's a list of all the people who help bring you the show every single day. See ya.